Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to give it just a minute for the room to fill in before we get started with our webinar today. So if you'll sit tight for just a second, we'll let everyone fill in. If you're just joining us, we're waiting for the room to fill in before we get started with our webinar today. So if you're looking for agentic AI solutions for accounts payable, you are in the right place. So we'll just give it one more second. All right. Hello again and welcome. Thanks for joining us for today's session, Agentic AI for Accounts Payable. We are excited to show you a smarter, faster, and truly hands-free approach to AP automation, one that goes far beyond the historical automation within AP. Now, before we dive in, I have a few housekeeping notes. First, all lines are muted and will remain so for the duration of the event. We do welcome your questions. Please drop them in the Q&A at any time. We're going to answer as many of them as we can live. And yes, we are recording this session and we will send out a link to the recording on Friday. Also, if you prefer to get your closed captioning in Spanish or Portuguese, there's a link in the chat that's going to give you the ability to get it in an alternate language. We're also going to be running a couple of quick poll questions during the session, so keep an eye out and let us know where you stand. It's going to help us tailor the conversation a little bit today. Now, back to why you're here. Let's be honest, AP automation isn't new. For decades, organizations have been layering automation into different aspects of their accounts payable process. Yet, despite all of this effort, there's still a lot of manual work involved. Why? Because traditional systems weren't designed to reason across applications or handle high volume, exception heavy processes. And that is where agentic AI makes the difference. Today, we're going to introduce you to a pre-built, ready to deploy AI agent solution that brings a new level of intelligence to invoice processing. No coding required. And we'll cover how these AI agents collaborate with users through natural language, resolve discrepancies and handle exceptions intelligently, drive end-to-end automation from invoice receipt to payment, and improve accuracy, eliminate delays, and optimize working capital. I am joined today by two of the best people to talk about this, Ken Mertzel, our Global Finance and Accounting Leader, and Luis Barcenas, our Senior Director of Sales Engineering. Let's get started. Ken, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jamie. As Jamie mentioned, I'm the Global Finance Leader for Automation Anywhere. I've been here over 6 years, and I speak with most of our clients talking about how to apply the technology, particularly in the finance function. And that's given my background has pretty much been entirely in finance in my career, most recently at Bank of America for 15 years, where I was CFO of their insurance group, and then in a variety of roles in finance risk management in consumer operations, and then led financial operations with the bank. So if we go to the next slide, today I just wanted to briefly talk about some trends, general trends in finance automation, and then we'll go into a brief overview of agentic process automation, just so you kind of understand the technology driving our primary focus, which is going to be our AI agent solution for accounts payable. And as Jamie mentioned, please do throughout the presentation enter your questions in Q&A, and we'll definitely get to them by the end. So with that, let me go ahead and talk briefly about some of the trends and priorities for CFOs. So I think particularly when people focus on think about automation, they think about, how do I drive efficiency and productivity? And that's certainly a top priority for CFOs, but they have a much broader purview. And so we're seeing CFOs looking at how can they apply automation to cover a variety of other priorities, including improving cash flow, driving business growth, strengthening controls, and really with the advent of AI, it's really being leveraged now to enhance decision making. And so if you look at how automation's enabling that, if we go to the next slide, yes. So you see here that certainly automation has always been able to, again, drive efficiency, particularly through, like in the early days, robotic process automation. But what we're seeing now is, first of all, enhanced coding productivity. So Gen AI is being able to actually develop the code for automations. And then when we look towards some of the other priorities, so improvement of cash flow, we're seeing a lot of automations, particularly in the accounts receivable space, to enable areas such as billing or also around cash forecasting. From a business growth standpoint, the main benefit, frankly, is the ability to handle a lot higher volume without having to add additional resources. So it really gives you instant scalability. And also, we're seeing a lot more of the use cases, whereas they used to be more back office focused and operation focused, now more front office in terms of, cross-selling and enabling prospecting. Probably one of the top things I'm asked about is how can automation be used to strengthen controls? And so we're seeing a lot of focus around automating internal controls, helping create risk-based audits, et cetera. And then lastly, around enhanced decision making, the great thing about generative AI is it's able to summarize vast amounts of information and actually provide recommendations. But at the end of the day, the key is really human in the loop to actually make those decisions. So I wanted to do next is talk a little bit about some of the trends we're seeing in automation, and everyone's heard a lot about AI. They've also heard things like, "Hey, we're going from automated to autonomous enterprises." I don't think at this point, organizations and functions are going completely autonomous, but they're able to get a lot further given the evolution in the automation. Whereas historically it was focused on pure sort of task-based robotic process automation, we're seeing now organizations able to automate entire processes or even a good portion of functions, leveraging the combination of technologies, which Luis will talk about shortly in terms of agentic process automation. So the combination of process automation, generative AI, document automation, et cetera, enables you to automate a lot more. And as I mentioned earlier, the benefits of automation have really transformed from purely productivity focus now to more, top line growth and risk focus. And then lastly, in terms of how people are interacting with the technology, I think historically it was more of a QA role, making sure that everything was accurate. And now again, we're seeing the automation really enable decision making. So, typically people are involved really in ultimately making that decision, leveraging the recommendations from the automation, but then being able to make those decisions. And so I wanted to give you some examples of how that's transforming the use cases in finance. So whereas we see things like, automating reconciliations, which is still a large use case, but now going to even helping around technical accounting. So being able to look at contracts and actually make decisions around revenue recognition. Or historically, certainly automation has been able to, create invoices from purchase orders, but now you're able to actually leverage generative AI to actually make decisions around how do I optimize collections around past due invoices. And then lastly, there's, a lot of focus as always around, how can I create and automate reports that I had to do manually in Excel, and that certainly automation is able to do that. But now what's exciting is to be able to take that automation and with generative AI actually not just create the reports, but actually analyze them and determine, what's the primary drivers of variances between forecast and actuals, and really analyze performance. So lastly, before we got into the platform itself and into the AP solution, I just wanted to really quickly give you a feel for some of the automation use cases we're seeing across finance and accounting. And what I've done is highlighted use cases that seem to be trending, I think, particularly because they're heavily driven by the advent of generative AI. Of course, today we're going to focus specifically on accounts payable, and there are lots of opportunities there, but we're seeing, equal focus around order to cash and accounts receivable, again, because of the ability to drive increased cash flow in areas like, processing sales orders or collections. And then certainly opportunities across the entire record to report function. As I mentioned, things like, manual reconciliations, manual journal entries have always been a focus, but now we're seeing a lot more focus around, how can I automate internal controls or look for potential, fraud or unusual variations. And in treasury and tax, things like not only cash reporting, but now you have the ability with generative AI to ensure that any invoices you're creating or paying have the appropriate, tax rates applied by leveraging generative AI to actually look at all the tax codes and be able to compare that to what the rates are on invoices. And then lastly, I mentioned the ability to really leverage the automation to not just create reports, but really to do the analysis. So as I mentioned, we're really going to focus on AP today, but I wanted to give you sort of a broad view first. So with that, I think I wanted to go into our first polling question. And as we get into AP, what we wanted to understand was, where are you in your automation journey related to accounts payable specifically? So is it mostly manual? Do you have some partial automation, or is it nearly fully automated? So we'll give you a few seconds to answer, and then we can pull up the poll. So pretty simple. Probably don't need to give you a lot of time on this one, and then whenever you're ready, Jamie, we can go ahead and pull up the answers here. Great. So not too surprising. It looks like a majority of folks are partially automated. There still are a fair number of organizations that are still running manual, and then some folks are fully along the journey. So that's pretty representative of what we're seeing. And so with that, what I'm going to do is hand it off to Luis, who will talk a little bit about how the platform can help automate accounts payable, and then we'll actually show you a demo of the accounts payable solution. Luis, off to you.
Thank you, Ken, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I know we have people joining us from all over the world. Thank you for being here today and learn more about our Agentic solutions. My name is Luis Barcenas. I lead our generative AI solutions team here at Automation Anywhere, being with the company for over 80 years now. And over my career here at this company, I've seen this particular process, around accounts payable be one of the most common ones that we have tackled in multiple industries and in multiple geographies. But this continues to remain a big issue, right? This is still not completely automated or completely solved, I would say, either by traditional technologies or some of the manual effort that we'll still do. So what I want to maybe start with today is to basically introduce a brand new category that Automation Anywhere as a company is creating, right? I think a lot of the people here on this call know us as an RPA company, as a robotics process automation company. But what we're doing is, as part of our evolution, is that we're now creating a new category called Agentic Process Automation. And what this Agentic Process Automation category basically means is that it gives us the ability to create much more advanced automation frameworks. They can orchestrate bots, traditional bots, AI agent technologies, API automations, and people, and also different technologies like document automations and so much more. Right. So within this agentic process automation capabilities, what we can do now, very different from the previous automation technologies, is that now these technologies can handle much more unstructured data. Right. They can make decisions. They can perform deeper analysis. They can basically mimic some of the human-like decision making along the processes and connect to multiple systems along the way to achieve much more end-to-end automation throughput, right? Because this is a very important and disruptive category that we are creating as a company. And what this is allowing us to do is, again, tackle much more complex processes and activities that were not possible before. And with these platform capabilities, what we're now doing is that we're now creating what we call these pre-built AI agent solutions, right? These are basically ready-to-use AI agents. They're built for the enterprise. They do not have any type of complex setup, no guesswork. It's just fast execution right out of the box. One of the big challenges that I have seen over my career here at this company and across the globe, talking to multiple customers, is this entire thing as to how do I automate process faster? How do I achieve time to value faster? How can I, and now in this new AI world, how can I use the best models, the best prompt, the best AI technologies to solve my particular problems? What we're doing with this agentic solutions is that we're removing a lot of that guesswork from our customers, right? We're removing a lot of that complexity. We come with all of these pre-built assets and components by leveraging all of our experience and expertise, by providing all of the best practices, all of the best prompt tuning and models along the way to make sure that all of these solutions deliver value right out of the box. And these solutions are built using our entire platform, as you can see here on this graph. It leverages our entire automation systems, which uses RPA, API tasks, and many multiple integrations that we have out of the box. It also uses our agentic systems where you can build multiple AI skills and cognitive skills along the way to perform this human-like decisioning, cognitive capabilities. And all of these wrap within an agentic orchestration capabilities to make sure that the right actions and the right steps are taken along the way to ensure accurate and consistent output every time, okay? And so these agentic solutions, like I mentioned before, they're pre-trained, they're fully orchestrated, they're plug and play, and they're ready to be used by any one of our customers. Doesn't matter where the geography is, right? And also within this new reality, I mean, the human agent collaboration becomes much more important, right? Because a lot of these experiences now with AI are much more conversational, right? They're much more embedded. They're actionable, right? It's not just about retrieving knowledge or answering simple questions. It's about executing actions and executing work across all of the different systems and across all of the different apps that you use. And as part of the strategic initiative that we're taking on building these particular solutions, we're focusing on several functions, as you can see here. One of our core functions is around finance and accounting, and that's why we're here all today to learn more about that. Customer support is also an important area for us where we believe we can inject a lot of value, and we have solutions for customer support. Same thing for banking and finance, especially around heavy compliance-like processes like customer onboarding or KYC. We have solutions around banking and finance as well, pre-built, pre-constructed out of the box. And also healthcare, which includes and covers and has today, right, a higher level of complexity, multiple legacy systems, a lot of oceans of information that need to be navigated before we can make the right decisions. And so healthcare in the context of revenue cycle management, we also have different solutions that addresses a lot of the multiple problems you see there. And then we're also building specialty agents, right, to tackle very general problems. So some of those specialty agents are agents around tariffs. As you know, the world is going through some changes around tariffs, right, globally, which is disrupting the supply chain for many multiple companies, right? So creating these tariffs agents allow you to have instant knowledge, instant access to information to an ever-changing world, right? And create a more robust and resilient supply chain department. Competitive intelligence is also very important, right? I mean, especially if, in multiple areas, right? How is your competitor pricing their products, right? How can you make sure that, the right pricing, the right strategy is applied every time and for every transaction? So these specialty agents are browsing the entire internet constantly, looking at the different competitor websites for you and your own use case to make sure and determine that you can always apply the best competitive strategy when competing for a particular deal. And also the same thing is how we can improve the employee experience. This is a very common use case that we see across the board, where employees have questions to their payroll departments, to the HR departments, to their IT departments, and we can improve that experience by capturing a lot of the information and knowledge across the entire organization and provide that knowledge to employees through simple and engaging conversational experiences, right? So this is a new shift for Automation Anywhere, where we're building these solutions out of the box, pre-constructed, pre-built, to accelerate the entire time to value and time to market for any agentic or AI project that you have at your hands. So now we have another poll. Jamie, you want to maybe tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So this next poll questions, what aspects of AP invoice processing are most challenging for you? Is it document ingestion, matching, approval workflow, non-PO invoices, or exception processing? So give a little bit of time for folks to answer that question.
Feel free to choose more than one.
I've still got folks answering, so we'll give it one more second. All right, perfect. Here you go.
All right, so document ingestion, matching, approvals, non-PO invoices, exception processing. It's almost like it's very close if you think about it, right? It's all over, you know, the percentages are not that far away. It seems like it's a very standard issues along the way, right, in multiple steps. And that is basically, and thank you for the poll and the questions and the answers there. And that is basically what we see across the board, right, quite frankly. And this is now where we start tackling a little bit of what the real problem that we're solving with these solutions. So the traditional automation technologies, right, that have helped us, you know, automate or semi-automate a lot of these invoice processing activities. The way that they do this today, and the typical STP percentage that they achieve, is roughly between 40 to 60% from all the companies that we have spoken to, right? And that is because traditional automation, what they do, if we break this down into simple components, when they want to do extraction, they typically use very legacy and old OCR technologies, right? That are systems that are hard to train. They don't have a high level of extraction capabilities, and they rely a lot on these legacy technologies to do a best effort to extract the data, right? Which again triggers a bunch of exceptions, right? Especially when you have documents that are multi-page, have complex tables, have multiple languages, right? Have images embedded into it. So the extraction definitely is a big challenge. The second part of that is the matching. You know, with traditional automation, a lot of these rules are very strict set of rules that you know do not know how to navigate certain ambiguity within the process, right? The matching could be maybe two-way, three-way matching against PO, goods receives, you know, and they typically do a very, you know, very poor job at doing this type of matching, right? Because they're a very strict set of rules. And then also the approvals, right? I mean, when you have approval workflows, we see a lot of companies spending a lot of money on programming and configuring a lot of these systems to create these entire approval workflows, right? And even when you do that, you still have a AP specialists contacting and reaching out to the approvers, either via you know, collaboration tools like Teams, Slack, or something else, but also via emails, right? Which again becomes a very manual and tedious work. The way that we're solving this issue with agentic process automation, with our agentic solutions, is that we can now achieve and we can now perform a much more complex extraction on any type of document. Our document automation platform allows us to basically extract any information from any type of document. And that is because you know, we can now extract documents that have you know, handwriting, or that have images, or that have even a poor scan quality, or that include complex tables, multiple pages, and so much more. And that is because our document automation product leverages the latest and greatest generative AI technologies, including vision models, that allows us to not just extract data from the documents, but interpret the content inside of that document. So this is beyond OCR technology. This is beyond of just simple tagging and identifying patterns within the document. What we can now do is literally understand and interpret the contents of any document that is presented to us and make sense out of it and extract any relevant data that we want from the document. That improves the entire straight-through processing of invoices dramatically. The second point is the advanced matching in queries. So basically what we do, and what we do with these new capabilities, with AI capabilities, is that AI is really good at navigating ambiguity, right? Traditional automation is much more on very deterministic, yes or no, black or white, 0 and 1 type of output. AI is really good at navigating ambiguity, right? Can we do a similarity search? Can we do a pattern recognition? Can we detect intent? Can we do all of those things, right? That is what this advanced matching and querying is all about, right? And when you can perform this type of cognitive and human-like decisions within the process, again, you can also achieve a higher straight-through processing. The chasing approval scenario is also a very common one, right? So within our solution, we have pre-built and very easy to configure approval mechanisms, which again will trigger communications via Microsoft Teams, via emails, or via any other mechanism that you use to make sure that the right person within the process is notified and alerted whenever their input is needed, right? And this is very easily configured. It's very easily to put into place. And then the last piece here is the exception processing, right? Because even when you have all of these technologies, and even when you can achieve a higher straight-through processing, there's always going to be some type of exceptions, right? There's always going to be some type of anomalies. But what we can do with these type of solutions is that we can accelerate and handle these exceptions a lot faster and a lot more efficiently, because the solution is and the technology in the background is looking at the entire context of the transaction, the invoice, the contract, the approvers, the vendor, the items, the amounts, and it has a very complete story of all these elements, and is capable of recommending the best next action to our AP specialists whenever presented with a very complex exception. So this is basically what we're going to see now in the demo. So let's jump right into that. So I think you can still all see my screen. So what I'm showing you right now is what we call our Agentic AI solution. Okay? And these solutions are basically a brand new way to integrate or interact with agentic technologies, with AI and automations. So as you can see here, this is basically a brand new application, a brand new interface that an AP specialist will log in. I will take the role now of an AP specialist, and I'm going to log in into my system. As soon as I log in into my system, what I'm going to see, it's again, an entire dashboard that shows me all of the different KPIs and metrics that I'm interested in as an accounts payable specialist, where it shows me transactions that have been, or invoices that are being autonomously resolved, some other ones that need some type of human input, the average cost per invoice, DPO, and so much more. And also on the right side, what I have, it's a conversational assistant that I can ask any question in natural language. And I can ask any question in any language also, right? The assistant can speak multiple languages, as you can imagine. All of this is fueled by generative AI in the background, right? Which can be trained and can incorporate knowledge from all of your manuals, best practices, as well from any other data repository like SharePoint, OneDrive, and many others. But this assistant can also have statistical information and historical information as to how the entire operation is going. So in this case, I just asked a question about the last 24-hour performance, and you can see some of the metrics that the system is capable of providing to me, right there in natural language, in a very fast and immediate fashion. Now, what I can also do here is I can go into my invoice processing transaction screen. And as soon as I log in into that, I'm going to see an array of multiple invoices that some of them have been processed autonomously, some of them require some type of human input. If I go into this first one, which is invoice 2075 that you can see on screen, this entire invoice has been completely processed autonomously by my AI agent. It shows me all of the details of the invoice. It shows me all of the documents that it used to perform the multiple actions, like the three-way matching, with the PO, the goods received notice, and even the vendor contract. It used all of these things to completely process and pay this particular invoice. On the right side, my conversational assistant always has context of what I'm looking at screen. So in this scenario, it's presenting to me with a very simple summary of this particular invoice and telling me basically how the system and what the solution has already done with it. If I want to learn more about it, I can just click on details. Okay. Then once I click on details, then it's going to show me some information as far as the data that was extracted from the document, as well as multiple AI audits, checks, and balances that it did before approving the payment for this particular invoice. And you can see the multiple checks and balances that it performed for each one of them. And then, of course, all the different steps that it took to actually post the payment and perform this transaction, right? So this one went through, no problem. Now let me show you an invoice or a transaction that needs some type of exception, right? In this scenario, the solution has determined that the payment terms provided do not match the contractual terms, right? And here we can see that the anomaly or the exception trigger and the reason why, right? The assistant on the right side is telling me all of the steps that has already done, like the data extraction, he performed the three-way matching, but then he found some type of warning, right? And some type of anomaly. And so what the solution is recommending for me is that I need to send this for approval before processing, right? That is the AI in the background, keeping the context of the transaction and suggesting the best next step. In this case, if I click this action to send for approval, what the system is going to do is going to notify the person in charge, in this case, or the decision maker, in this case is the CFO, that, and again, the system will basically update the ERP in the background, will send a personalized communication to the CFO via email, and categorize this entire transaction as a pending processing, okay? So all of these exception handling can now be done a lot easier thanks to this AI assistant and thanks to this new way of interacting with the technology. If I look at another example, right? And in this case, this is an invoice that does not have a matching PO, right? This is a very common scenario, right? As you mentioned on the poll. In this scenario, again, the solution was able to extract all of the data from the document, and it tried to perform a similarity search, which means that the system tried to look at this vendor history, try to look at currently open POs in the system. It tried to find if there's any particular PO that we can associate this invoice against. In this case, it couldn't find it. And so the recommendation here is that we can send this back to the purchaser, return back to the vendor, or maybe even create a new vendor if it's necessary. All of these are actions that are suggested by the AI when presented with particular scenarios like the one I'm showing you. So in this case, I'm just going to decide to return this back to the purchaser and make sure that all of these systems are updated along the way, right? So here's basically what I mean that we can handle a lot of these complex exceptions that I mentioned on screen. Now, let me show you how we can now process an entire new invoice live. So let's say that you're about to finish your day and something urgent came into your desk, and now you need to process a new invoice. This invoice just came in out of nowhere, and it's an invoice where needs to be processed right away. This is a very complex document. You haven't seen it before, but they're asking you to process it. So as soon as you hit submit, what's going to happen is the agentic orchestration in the background is going to pick up this file and it's going to start executing the entire end-to-end processing for this invoice, right? The first thing that it's going to do is going to extract the information from the document. It's going to start doing a three-way matching against it and determine if this is something that we should approve, pay, or if does it have some type of exception. Let me show you what this document looks like. This is a document that has handwriting on it, right? It's a very unusual type of document, but I want to make sure to highlight the power and capabilities of our document extraction engine, right? This is a document that maybe a year, 2 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to process, right? But now, thanks to these new capabilities in our platform, this is something that we can now process without any problem, right? And this is something that I'm showing you right now on screen, okay? In the meantime, what you're going to see here again on the background is the solution is extracting all of this data, is looking for particular, is trying to look for the actual invoice due date and payment terms. It's going to try to find to see if there's any potential POs or good receipts notice within the system. And then it's going to put all of that information together to make a decision, a determination, if this is something that we should pay automatically, or if this is something that needs attention from a person or a human within the review. And from then on, take it forward to make sure that this is handled accordingly, right? So this is, again, when we mean that these are solutions that are pre-built and out of the box and pre-connected and pre-configured, all of these logic, all of these elements, all of these technologies that I'm just showing you right now are stitched together to deliver these type of capabilities out of the box. And the big value of this is that this can be deployed in your environment. They can be easily customized to include your own business rules, your own approval workflows. And these systems can incorporate and sit on top of all of your existing invoicing platforms, right? To augment or enhance their current capabilities, right? Helping you address all of that volume of invoices that today are done processed manually, right? So in this case, we see that there's an exception with the particular transaction, and we're going to see what that exception is about, okay? So in this scenario, this particular exception is going to show us that it couldn't find a PO for this particular transaction. And therefore, it needs some type of human validation. So the recommended step that the solution is giving us is, again, to either return to the vendor or return to the purchaser, right? So this shows you, how we can take a lot of these different technologies, how we can take the entire platform, stitch everything together, deliver to you something that is functional out of the box and ready for you to configure. Okay. With that being said, let me go back to the content.
And while you're doing that, Luis, so we're getting a lot of great questions, so continue to put those in the chat. We're going to try to go through all of them. One thing I think you did address towards the end of the demo, we're seeing a lot of questions about, is the fact that obviously everyone has their own ERP system, lots of other applications. So people have, SAP, Oracle, Coupa, you name it, right? And so I think you addressed this, but the main point is that the solution is really designed to interact with all those systems. It's really agnostic to whatever ERP or other systems you have. And so it's really meant to complement those systems as opposed to, replace them, if you will. And so therefore it will interact with all of those systems. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add to that, Luis, but there's a question coming up pretty frequently.
You're absolutely right. And I see now some of the questions, can this be integrated with Oracle, QuickBooks, and many others? The answer to all of those questions is yes. I mean, as all of you know, one of the main strengths of our platform is that it can integrate with any technology that you're using today, right? This could be legacy, this could be modern technologies. And so the purpose of this type of solutions is that it can sit on top of all of your existing systems to allow you to orchestrate work from a much of a simplified and robust experience, right? So all of the things that I just showed you, where we updated the record, we updated the system, we updated the invoice, those are still happening in your local ERPs, and that could be SAP, Oracle, QuickBooks, or any other. The way that we have built the solution is that in a way that it can be easily pluggable into those systems that you're using today. Sorry. So that is basically, what we're building here. So hopefully that answers the question here.
Right. And so basically, we make it such that the interface basically looks as if it's embedded into your ERP or other systems so that you don't have to learn another system to use. So why don't we do this? We have one more quick poll question. I'm going to show one more slide, and then let's quickly get to questions because we have a lot of them building up here. So in terms of the last question we have, polling question we have, what percentage of your invoices are processed manually today? And we've given you a variety of ranges. So maybe just enter that in to give people a feel for where they are relative to others on the session. So we'll give you another couple seconds and we'll pull up the answer here. And in the meantime, if you have answered, go ahead and continue to put questions in. So a pretty wide mix here. We do have some people that have automated up to 80%, but you can see pretty much almost even spread with a lot of people sort of in that 20 to 40% range. So again, you will get a lot of uplift through the system because it's able to automate a majority of your invoices, but on top of that, it makes it much easier to process the exceptions. So with that, let me go to the next slide here. I just want to give you a broader view in terms of where we're going from here. So if you go to that next slide, Luis, you'll see that what we're trying to do is continue to build solutions that really enable you to quickly develop automations around a whole variety of finance functions. So today we've talked about accounts payable. And so in the future, we'll be building additional automations around lots of other areas, such as we see a lot of interest around billing and collections, enabling the close in terms of FP&A, which I frequently get asked about in terms of that variance analysis I talked about, and then also enabling audit and controls. And in addition to that, again, this is part of a broader platform. So Automation Anywhere's platform really is used across a wide variety of functions enterprise-wide. So the great thing is you can use this solution specifically for AP, but you can also use the broader platform for automation, not only across finance, but across the entire organization. So with that, hopefully everyone is entered in their questions. Jamie, I'm going to hand it back to you to kick off and go through our lengthy list here we have.
Okay, great. Thanks, Ken. Can we go to the next slide, Luis? I just want to give everybody a chance. We have a couple of different QR codes for you to learn more. So first for the learn more about agentic automation for finance. So that wheel that Ken just showed you that has all these different opportunities, that page is going to take you, that's going to be more general page. So you can get some additional information about opportunities for agentic automation within the finance space. And then if you want to test drive our solution for AP Agentic AI solution for invoice for AP accounts payable, you can scan this QR code and upload your own invoice and test it out right here. So we'll go ahead and leave those up as we're going through these questions. And I know there are a number of them. So I don't know. I know, Luis, you've been answering some of these online. Is there one that you might want to pull forward and call out first, or?
Yeah, sure. So I think some of the questions that I am seeing very common, it's regarding the user interface that a lot of you are seeing because they see something completely new. It looks very different from our typical control room. So this entire UI was built on a brand new product from Automation Anywhere called Agentic Workspace. And this is basically a low-code application builder technology that allows us to build these new interfaces. And so what we're doing now is taking this interface builder and connecting it to our platform to drive a lot of these experiences that you see here. And this is what allows us to build the entire dynamic flows, the UI layer, the integrations, the conversational piece, right? These can all be done through that platform. But one of the things that I want to maybe highlight here is what you saw here, it's all part of a bundle, right? So if you are interested in exploring the agentic solution for accounts payable, then all of this entire product becomes a bundle where the UI, the document automation, the bot runners, all of the capacity that you need to deliver this to your organization is completely bundled into a brand new offering from us, right? So again, if you're interested in learning more, we can definitely talk about it. But the UI, again, that's the name and that's what it's for.
Luis, another question I wanted to tackle was one that came early on around how does this enable also sort of process optimization and improvement? And maybe I'll give my business perspective on this. So I think the benefit of the solution is, frankly, we built in a lot of best practices into the solution. So this is, templates that enable you to, again, more effectively extract information from invoices, conduct the matching, and in particular, that routing of exceptions. But the nice thing about it is there's still a customization element, so it can certainly be tailored to your processes. So I think the point this individual is getting at, which I completely agree with, is you don't necessarily want to take like a broken process and just automate it. So this is a bit different because what we're trying to do is give you sort of the best practice components of the AP process to enable you not just to purely automate it, but to actually enhance the process.
Makes sense. And I see more questions coming in. I'm trying to answer them also through the chat, but let me see. Can this be set up to review an invoice against a contract for any exception or trial reviews? Excellent questions. Yes, it can. And it's actually a very common ask that we see from multiple customers where you have vendor contracts or even some legislations at the country or state level where you want to maybe audit or compare any incoming transaction against any one of these contracts or legislations. Absolutely, right? And this we have seen as a very important area for us to drive in much more value because the AI can not only process the invoice and do the three-way matching, but it can also audit it against the vendor agreement and detect any potential discrepancies, right? And say, hey, am I overpaying or it's undercharged or there's something, right? AI can definitely do that, and this solution is also programmed to do that as well.
Yeah, the nice thing about the document automation component is, it has, first of all, very high accuracy rate, particularly associated with invoices in terms of pulling out those key fields. And which is important given that, as you all know, like every single vendor invoice, is completely formatted differently. Sometimes they change, and the technology is able to extract all that information relatively easily. But to the extent there's an invoice that is completely unreadable or what have you, or a field's missing, the nice thing is, again, it's able to intelligently, identify, hey, something's missing, and then basically flag that for the user. So it's very interactive and easy to use.
Yeah. Here's another question around security and data governance and deployment scenarios. So everything that you saw right here that we just showed you can be deployed fully as a SaaS option, or it can also be brought and deployed on premises, right? So you have the two options. And when you deploy this on premises, then you can bring your own large language models, you can bring your own generative AI models and connect it to this solution. And the solution will use that model that you have authorized and approved in your organization, and it will work out of the box without a problem, right? So we have made these entire solutions also open so that you can bring your own models, you can deploy it on your premises, for obvious reasons. As there are a lot of companies that prefer the on-premise approach, but this can also be offered on the cloud, right, if you needed to.
The other question I saw that was pretty interesting here was around, hey, a lot of ERPs and other applications have their own specific AI capabilities. So how does this relate to that? And I think it's a great question because, as you know, everyone's talking about AI, everyone's building their own AI agents into their own specific application. So the nice thing about our platform and solutions like this is that what we're doing is providing those broad AI capabilities that you can frankly use across any application, any platform, or frankly, any process. We're showing this specifically in terms of the use of AP. But this enables you, again, to leverage all these capabilities we described cross-function and cross-application. So if you need to do something specifically with one application, I tell people, hey, to the extent it works well and it's low cost to implement, go ahead and use that. But if you're trying to do things, often processes including AP and other cross multiple applications and multiple functions, that's where a solution, a platform like this really applies.
Okay, great. Let me see what else. Well, there's another one here. How do you connect it to systems that are commonly used? You already set it up with things like Oracle. I mean, it's very transparent, right? I mean, like I said, if you have even like legacy systems, let's put an example, like one of those green screen systems, right, that are still laying around somewhere. We can definitely integrate with a lot of those because we have the capabilities to interact with multiple platforms, either at the UI level, meaning that we can simulate keystrokes and clicks and interact with these graphical interfaces. But we can also talk to multiple modern applications via API or web services or many others, right? So basically, we can talk to any type of application you have out there, right? And integrate it within this solution that you're seeing.
I'm also seeing some questions about the ability to automate processes. It might be like ancillary to AP invoice processing. So, for example, risk assessment associated with reviewing and approving new vendors. And again, that's where I think this platform shines because again, it's not an AP platform. It's not even a finance platform. It's a broad automation platform. We're just developing solutions to accelerate, automation of things like AP. But, if you take, for example, a risk assessment for vendors, the capabilities of platform is such that, you could go out and take all the information and, to extent, let's say it's a public company, you could easily leverage the automation to pull in all the public information from their investor, relations website. So whether that's financial reports, their ESG summaries, et cetera, then you could leverage that document automation capability we talked about to extract all the information and then leverage the generative AI capability to actually create a summary which would not only summarize the information, but also highlight, hey, here are the key risk factors that you want to be conscious of. And the way it's able to do that is you can also feed in like your vendor policies in terms of what you're looking for and the criteria are. And the generative AI is able to look at that, look at the vendor information, and actually provide recommendations and highlight potential risks as you're doing the review as an example. So again, that's the nice thing is the platform has much broader capabilities beyond simply the AP invoice processing that we've shown today.
Yeah. Makes sense. Thank you, Ken, for that. I think, Jamie, you're saying we have 10 more minutes. Let's see if there's any other last question that maybe we want to answer before we wrap up. Maybe I'll choose one, and maybe it's a little bit more technical question that I see here posted, where it says, how can this augment or be better than traditional OCR? So basically, the technologies that we're using in our document automation platform go beyond OCR. And the way I see this is that I see it as 3 levels of extraction capabilities that are embedded within document automation. Level 1 is classic OCR, right? I mean, we do have OCR capabilities in the platform, especially for those simple type of documents, right? Where you just need to, they're very structured documents. You need to extract data from the same fields every time. We have OCR, check. Level 2, we combine OCR technologies with generative AI. So in this case, you have maybe a semi-structured or unstructured type of document. This could be maybe a multi-page contract or something like that. OCR can extract a lot of the text and then use generative AI along with some prompts to extract text from that information, right? Use the combination. Level 3, which is where we are also now with document automation, is that we use multimodal vision models from generative AI providers. Now, this is a much more advanced capability that allows us to not only extract or interpret information from text, but also from images embedded within the document. So if you look at a document like a financial report type of document, that not only includes text, but also includes charts, statistics, metrics, and so much more. And so what these vision models allows us to do is not only understand the text inside of it, but also the graphs that go along with it, right? Complex tables, complex graphs, right? And make sense out of those graphs to provide, like I mentioned before, a better interpretation of the document, right? So our document automation tool provides these 3 levels of extraction capabilities, right? So that's why we're able to process documents much more effectively, increase the entire straight-through processing along the way.
Luis, one additional question you could add color on is, question not surprisingly around data security, particularly around, security in general around the information, but also particularly in terms of, are we using public LLMs? How are people given confidence that their data is staying secure?
Yeah, so within the entire platform, we have a component called AI Agent Studio. Within AI Agent Studio, what we can do is we can build a lot of these cognitive skills like 3-way matching or reasoning and so much more. What these AI skills allows us to do is that we can also put guardrails and security constraints around it. So every time we invoke an LLM model, either from provided by Automation Anywhere or provided by internally by any one of the customers, that entire AI skill gets fully audited. So we know what, when, how, and what information was sent and what information was received from the model. We capture a lot of telemetry from that communication is what I'm trying to say. And then also on top of that, we have PII masking capabilities. So we can definitely protect any information that tries to leave the control room or tries to leave our environment before it reaches the LLM. So imagine that you're sending, I don't know, a credit card number, right? We can obfuscate that credit card number in the prompt before it reaches the model, tokenize that value. Once that response is received back from the model, then we can reconstruct that prompt again and deliver the original response. So we can protect the data in transit, we can protect the data at rest, and we have multiple mechanisms to make sure that everything that we're using along with AI is fully audited and fully visible by the admins and the developer teams. All right, so maybe one last thing. I know we have 5 minutes. I mean, what you see on screen, I think it's very relevant. We want you all to participate and test drive the accounts payable solution. You can actually just scan this QR code right here on screen, and you will be able to get access to what I just showed you today. You will be able to experience and test this on your own. So we invite all of the participants here to just take it for a test drive, right? Test drive the solution, experience it, throw some invoices at it, see what it does, right? And provide us with some feedback. We love the feedback. We love to hear what your experience was. But you can do this and you can demo this yourself. You can experience this yourself just by following this link.
Yeah, and then if you have additional questions or you want to schedule a meeting, feel free to reach out to us. We've given you our LinkedIn addresses here as well. Jamie?
Well, thank you all so much for your time today. Really appreciate all the wonderful questions that came in. Thank you, Ken and Luis, for sharing your expertise. We're super excited about folks trying the test drive. It's a it's a great way to interact with the product and just see what the capabilities are with this, or with the solution, and see what the capabilities are. And as I mentioned, we will be sending out a link to the recording on Friday. So you will get a link to this, so you can watch it again if you like. And then we'll also send a link to the test drive in there too, in case you have any trouble accessing it today. So once again, thanks everyone for your participation, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Thanks.